Chapter 8, Misha. Fuck. Not again, I groaned under my breath as the broom skidded violently across the kitchen floor. The sound echoed against the cabinets and bounced off the kitchen door before the broom finally collapsed in an awkward heap. From my place near the pantry door, I watched Zara and Riley spin around to the noise, their bodies stiff with alarm. My stomach sank immediately. I hadn't meant to do that. It had happened just as the vase had fallen that night, an eruption of frustration spilling outward before I even realized what I was doing. The emotions had surged up inside me again, loud and uncontrollable, and somehow the house had responded. Now the result lay on the kitchen floor. Zara's face had gone pale. Her gaze darted around the room, searching for a logical explanation that clearly refused to appear. Riley edged to the fallen broom, her posture tight, as if bracing for another object to cut across the room without warning. I floated around them, feeling a complicated mixture of satisfaction and guilt twist inside me. I had watched the entire lunch date unfold from the living room. Every word. Every awkward pause. Every nervous glance. If I were honest with myself, I had enjoyed watching it fall apart. The woman had been wrong for Zara from the beginning. I had known that within minutes of seeing her step through the door. But Riley had been so determined. So relentlessly optimistic. She kept pushing Zara toward things that made my chest tighten with anger. First, the date. Then the ridiculous idea that Zara might secretly like Harper. That suggestion alone had made my thoughts spiral. Harper. My best friend since childhood. The girl who used to steal my fries in school and laugh when I complained about it. The one who had stood beside me on my wedding day, crying harder than anyone else when Zara and I said our vows. The idea of Harper and Zara together felt so wrong that my mind refused to accept it. Yet Riley kept repeating the possibility as if she were unveiling some grand romantic revelation. And the more she said it, the more furious I became. I knew my behavior made no sense. Technically, I shouldn't feel any of this. I was dead. Ghosts weren't supposed to cling to jealousy or anger or longing. My body had vanished from the world years ago. The biological machinery that produced those emotions had been destroyed in the accident. Yet the feelings remained. They refused to disappear. Zara was still the love of my life. That truth hadn't faded simply because my heart had stopped beating. Even now, I could see her every day. I could watch her move through the house, hear her conversations, and observe the small habits that still belonged entirely to her. The worst part was the distance. I was right here. So close. Yet completely unreachable. I could see her. But she couldn't see me. I could hear her. But she couldn't hear me. And now she was slowly moving forward with her life while I remained trapped between two worlds that no longer made sense. The thought felt unbearable. Still, seeing the fear on Zara's face pulled me back from my spiraling thoughts. Her shoulders had tensed, and her eyes searched the room with growing unease. That reaction hurt more than the anger had. The last thing I wanted was for her to be afraid of this house. Afraid of me. Maybe I needed to stop letting my emotions explode around her like this. Every time I lost control, the physical world answered in kind, and the result only frightened the person I loved most. Riley, on the other hand, seemed to deserve at least a little discomfort. She had spent the entire afternoon encouraging Zara to move on with reckless enthusiasm. Someone needed to slow her down. My thoughts continued racing until another presence appeared beside me. Adam materialized near the pantry door, watching the scene in the kitchen with mild interest. "You did it again," he said. His tone carried no accusation. Just a simple observation. "Yes," I muttered defensively. "But it wasn't intentional." Adam glanced down at Zara and Riley, who were still staring at the broom. "She doesn't know that," he replied calmly. His appearance remained completely neutral, a detached glare that suggested he had already accepted that nothing in the world truly mattered anymore. "Just stop doing it," he added. "That would be helpful advice if I actually knew how to control it," I said irritably. Adam didn't argue. He simply drifted upward through the ceiling and disappeared to the attic. I hesitated briefly, watching Zara again as she bent down to pick up the fallen broom. Her movements remained cautious, as if the house itself had suddenly become unpredictable. A knot tightened in my chest. I needed to figure this out. If I was going to reach her, I had to do it without terrifying her. Adam seemed strangely calm about all of this. Maybe he understood a truth that remained beyond my grasp. With that thought lingering in my mind, I followed him upward through the ceiling, hoping he might have answers I desperately needed. I followed Adam back into the attic, my thoughts still tangled from all that had just happened downstairs. The dim space felt more subdued than usual, the faint moonlight slipping through the small window and stretching across the dusty floorboards. Adam drifted to the old recliner near the wall and lowered himself into it with the casual indifference he seemed to bring to every situation. I hovered nearby, unsure how to begin the conversation. "Adam," I said finally, breaking the silence, "do you know how I can control this? How can I communicate with my wife without frightening her?" He leaned back in the recliner and stared at the ceiling beams as if the question were already exhausting. "I do," he replied after a pause. Hope sparked inside me immediately. "But I'm not going to tell you," Adam said. The words landed with frustrating finality. "Why not?" I asked quickly, moving closer to him. "You know how important this is to me. Zara is my wife. She deserves to know I'm still here." Adam's gaze shifted to me, and the features in his dark eyes turned harder than I expected. "That's exactly why I don't want you doing it," he said. I frowned. "You're already harassing her," he said. The accusation caught me off guard. "She doesn't want to talk to you." "How do you know that?" I demanded. Adam sat upright in the chair, folding his arms. "Because I've seen this before." I shook my head stubbornly. "You don't understand," I insisted. "I can feel it. Somewhere deep inside, I know she still needs me. And if I can't reach her somehow..." I hesitated, struggling to explain the storm inside my mind. "I feel like I'm losing control of everything." Adam studied my face for a long time before speaking again. "You have no idea what you're actually trying to do," he said. "And you have no idea how badly it can mess with the people you love." His insistence deepened slightly. "You're being selfish." The word struck harder than I expected. Before I could respond, Adam pushed himself up from the recliner and turned as if he were about to leave entirely. "What do you mean by that?" I snapped. He stopped. "You're just a kid," I continued, anger pushing the words out before I could stop myself. "You don't know anything about marriage, or love, or how complicated life becomes when you build a life that is real with another person." Adam turned slowly. For the first time since I had met him, the detached calm in his features cracked. "Maybe I don't," he said. He appeared broken down now. "But I do know what happens when people try reaching back into the lives they already left behind." My frustration cooled slightly as I watched him. "What are you talking about?" Adam hesitated before answering. "When ghosts try contacting their families," he said slowly, "it doesn't comfort them as you think it will." His gaze dropped briefly to the floor. "It scares them." The words hung between us. "They start questioning the whole lot," he continued. "Their memories, their sanity, their ability to trust the world around them." He peered back up at me. "Some people lose their minds over it." The realization crept slowly through my thoughts. I raised my hand to him, pointing in sudden understanding. "You've done it," I said. Adam didn't respond immediately. Then he nodded once. "Yes." The single word carried more weight than any explanation. "What happened to you?" I asked more gently now. "How did you die?" His jaw tightened. "What does that matter to you?" "I'm sorry for what I said earlier," I replied. "I shouldn't have dismissed your experience." Adam remained silent. "Can you tell me what happened?" I asked again. He hesitated for several seconds before finally sinking back into the recliner with a heavy thump. It was stupid, he muttered. I waited. Just a really stupid mistake. The attic grew noiseless again before he continued. It was summer, he said slowly. The memory softened his features slightly. One of those perfect days where the sun feels warm without being unbearable. My friends and I had gone down to the lake behind your house. I pictured the place immediately. The water seemed calm from the backyard, reflecting the sky in gentle ripples that shimmered under the afternoon light. We used to hang out there all the time, Adam continued. There was this old wooden dock that stuck out into the water. It creaked whenever someone walked across it. His words carried a faint trace of nostalgia. We spent the whole day swimming and joking around. I had brought a portable speaker, so music was blasting across the lake while we messed around in the water. He leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. The sun was bright. The lake smelled like wet grass and warm wood. It felt completely normal. The sadness in his voice grew. We were just teenagers being idiots. I remained silent, letting him continue at his own pace. One of my friends suggested we have a competition, Adam said. He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly embarrassed even now. We were swimming near the dock, and he thought it would be funny to see who could hold their breath underwater the longest. He shook his head slowly. It sounded harmless. I could almost see the scene unfolding in front of me. Teenagers laughing, splashing each other in the sunlight, convinced they were invincible. We took turns diving down, Adam continued. Everyone was timing each other on their phones. People were cheering and teasing whoever came up first. He gulped painfully. When it was my turn, I wanted to beat everyone. He paused. So, I stayed under longer than I should have. He turned, not wanting to face me anymore. I remember the sunlight filtering through the water above me, Adam said. The lake seemed golden from underneath. It felt calm at first. His fingers curled slightly against his knees. Then my chest started burning. I swallowed. But I didn't want to lose. His gaze drifted to the window. So, I waited a little longer. Adam's voice dropped almost to a whisper. And that's the last decision I ever made. I am so sorry that happened to you. It's unfair. The words left me softer than I intended, as if gentleness alone could carry the burden of what he had lived through. I tried to step into his grief, to imagine the sudden tearing of a life that had barely begun, but it slipped through my grasp. He had plans, a future that hadn't even unfolded yet, years waiting to be lived, and all of it had been taken without permission. Adam didn't react immediately. He stood there, still with a practiced ease, as if the conversation had already been lived through too many times, even if never spoken aloud. When he finally spoke, his patience didn't rise or break. It settled, still and definite. What's done is done now. There's nothing I can do about it. But what I choose to do now is still in my hands. He wasn't trying to comfort me. That was the unnerving part. He spoke with the calm of a man who had already battled through it and come to terms with the outcome, offering the truth as a boundary rather than advice. I understood what he meant. I could feel the truth of it pressing against me, firm and undeniable. And still, a part of me resisted. It pushed back, stubborn and insistent, weaving its own version of reality. My situation isn't the same. I won't lose control as he did. I'll know when to stop. The thoughts came easily, too easily, slipping into place like they had been waiting for permission. I didn't question them. I let them settle, let them justify what I had already decided I was going to do. When did you know? I asked, brushing past all that he had just given me, as if it hadn't mattered. That you could control things? Connect to people who are still alive? He studied me for a brief second, not surprised, just aware. Then his gaze moved, unfocusing slightly, as if the memory pulled him somewhere else entirely. I didn't know, he said. Not at first. His demeanor changed, losing that confidence, thinning into a more fragile state. I was destroyed. I couldn't stop thinking about my mother. About what she must have been going through. I kept imagining her alone in that house, trying to make sense of what refused to be understood. He exhaled slowly, like even now the thought pressed against him. So I stayed. I lingered there. Every day, I tried to reach her. I could almost see it as he spoke, him, caught between presence and absence, pacing through rooms that no longer belonged to him. I started small, he continued. Moving things. Just enough for her to notice. A chair moved slightly. A glass nudged out of place. Then I tried more. I tried to write. I tried to use their phone, typing out messages, deleting them, trying again. It took all I had to hold on to anything long enough to make it real. There was no pride in his stance. Only the memory of effort remained, of a force that had consumed him completely. I kept at it, he said, peaceful now. Over and over, until a final shift fell into place. Until I could finally reach through properly. Until she could feel me there. My breath caught, not because of the sadness in it, but because of the possibility. Then what happened? I asked, leaning forward without realizing it. When they knew it was you. Were they happy? For a moment, he didn't answer. His gaze dropped, the silence stretching just enough to make me uneasy. At first, he said, they were terrified. A hollow laugh slipped out of him, brief and without humor. Imagine that. Your dead son is moving things around your house. The image warped in my mind, turning from hope into unease, but I refused to let it take hold. Eventually, they realized it was me. That I wasn't anyone else. He paused, his features easing into a calm that felt almost dangerous. And then they started talking back. There it was, the I part had been waiting for. It became easier after that, he went on. Stronger. Like I had a place again. My mother would sit for hours, just talking to me. Telling me all about her day. Waiting for me to respond. His fingers curled slightly at his sides, like he could still feel the strain of it. It was like I never left. The words hung there, fragile and tempting. But then his expression morphed, a guarded look sealing itself behind his eyes. She stopped living her life. The sentence landed heavier than anything else he had said. She gave her all to it. To me. Every day, every hour, waiting, talking, hoping. His jaw tightened. And I let her. Because I wanted it too. A flicker stirred in my chest, a warning I didn't want to acknowledge. But it was consuming her, he said, dropping his tone further. And I couldn't let that happen. Not because of me. His head lowered, shoulders dipping slightly, as if the memory still carried impact. The room felt subdued around us, as if the rest had stepped back to give that confession space. I moved before I could think better of it, lowering myself in front of him so he couldn't see anywhere else. I should have stopped there. I should have understood what he was telling me. Instead, I held on to the one thing that mattered to me. Teach me. The words came out steady, without hesitation, without doubt. His head lifted slowly, and for the first time, a wild edge surfaced in his appearance, not anger, not quite disbelief, but close to it. You're unshakable, aren't you? It wasn't admiration. It wasn't even a question. It was recognition. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He let out a long, resigned breath, as if a realization had finally settled into place for him. Fine, he said. The word felt heavier than it should have. I'll teach you. There was a pause, silent and haunting. Enough to make sure I was still listening. But whatever happens after that, he added, his gaze locking onto mine, sincere and unyielding, that's on you. For a brief second, a hesitation stirred within me. Then it was gone. I nodded. Adam moved deeper into the attic as he spoke, his steps passing through stacked trunks and slanted beams as if they were made of mist. Dust hung in the air, caught in thin shafts of light slipping through a cracked tile above. The room felt forgotten, sealed off from the rest of the house, every object left exactly where it had been abandoned years ago. The first thing you need to do is practice when she is not around, he said, pointing to the narrow stairway that led down into the house. You don't want her walking into a situation she can't explain. His hand drifted over a pile of old books, their pages fluttering slightly at the disturbance. And stop hovering around her all the time. If you lose control, even for a second, it won't stay small. I followed his movement, stepping around a broken chair, my fingers brushing along the edge of a wooden table coated in dust. The surface held the faint outline of an object that had once been moved and never returned. It made the whole place feel as if it were waiting. You start small, he continued, moving to a corner where an old radio sat tucked between boxes. You move things. You test how much force you can hold without losing it. Then you attempt a more controlled approach. Electronics, if you can manage it. I crouched slightly, exploring the radio he pointed to. Its surface was dull, the knobs stiff with disuse. It felt like the kind of object that wouldn't forgive mistakes. So, if I move it, I said, glancing around the attic, trying to choose what could be disturbed without being noticed, I have to put it back too, right? The idea developed uneasily. Moving an object was one thing. Restoring it with exact precision felt like an entirely different challenge. Yes, Adam said, stepping closer to the table. His hand pressed down against it, and for a brief second, the wood creaked in response. But that's where it gets harder. Forcing an object out of place is simple. Returning it exactly as it was, that takes control. You might not get it right at first. I pictured a cup set just off-center, a chair angled wrong, a small disruption, subtle, yet enough to make Zara pause. The thought drew a tight line through my chest, but not enough to stop me. And electronics, he added, motioning again to the radio, they're different. Sometimes you have to reach into them, feel how they work from the inside. Other times, you can influence them from the outside. You won't know which works for you until you try. I stepped closer to the radio, my hand hovering just above it without touching. The idea of reaching into a closed box without opening it felt strange, like trying to hold water without a vessel. Then the phone, I said, straightening up, already moving ahead in my mind. That's the clearest technique, isn't it? If I can type, if I can send a message, she'll understand. The attic seemed to shrink slightly around that thought, like it had heard me commit to it. Yes, Adam said, though this time he didn't move closer. But that's the hardest thing you could choose. He let the words settle before continuing. It took me a long time. Longer than I expected. You don't start there. I turned from the radio, pacing slowly across the attic, stepping over a loose plank near the far wall. My gaze moved from object to object, measuring them, imagining how each one might budge, how much effort it would take to control it. Then I'll start with a simple task, I said, more to myself than to him. Move things around. Small things. I glanced at the stairway again, picturing the rooms below. Zara's still here. I'll wait until she leaves. Or maybe when she's asleep. The idea arrived with a flicker of urgency, an impatient edge that drove me forward. Adam crossed the room in a single motion, placing himself between me and the stairs. The air stirred, dust lifting as though a swift motion had sliced through it. Not when she's asleep, he said, holding his position there. Any sound, any movement she can't explain in the dark, that's the worst way for her to find out. I stopped, my hand resting against the wooden beam beside me. The house below felt closer now, as if I could already sense her moving through it, unaware of what I was planning just above her. Fine, I said, pulling my hand back, though the decision didn't settle as easily as my words did. I won't. But the attic no longer felt still. Every object around me seemed to hold potential now, waiting to be tested, waiting to respond. I peered at the table again. Then the chair. Then the radio. The waiting felt heavier than doing. And somewhere beneath it all, a process within me had already begun.